Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. So, I'll try to keep this one short, but don't hold me to it because I'm very pissed and haven't talked to anyone about this whole thing. And I might end up ranting here. But seriously, after reading about what happened, I don't think you'll blame me. So, my husband and I have been married for 10 years now, and never once in my married life did I think about leaving him, even though I knew about all his shenanigans that he tried and failed to hide from me. I always stuck into marriage thinking that men often lose their way and I should be the one to make it work between us because no matter what, in our old age, when they'll be over their adventurous spirit, only our love will remain and we'll be able to have the life we always wanted. But things don't always turn out as we plan, and my husband asked me a few months ago for a divorce. He told me that he tried to stay with me and that he thought he loved me enough to overlook my bland personality and uptight habits. But it's not working out exactly like he imagined, and he can't be stuck in a relationship that holds him back. He said that he has decided to finally be free and pursue other women with whom he can have his ideal life, and he doesn't want this unhappy marriage to hold him back from it. I was shocked to hear these words because, for starters, how can he say he's been stuck in this relationship and that this marriage is holding him back when all this time I've known all the different young girls that he has had affairs with? And secondly, shouldn't I be the one to complain about how he's the reason that I've become the person I am today when I gave up my career and my life to support him and be with him, and he didn't give a rat's ass about it? I was so humiliated by the words that he was saying that I couldn't help but scream at him and fight him. But he just calmly threw me aside and brought out the divorce papers from his office. He gave the papers to me and told me to sign them and accept the current situation as it is without embarrassing myself. Then he proceeded to tell me that if I need time to get to terms with everything, then I can stay in the house a while longer because he's planning to go on vacation with his current girlfriend. And by the time he comes back, he expects me to have signed the paper and left. That was the last time I talked to him. I was beside myself with anxiety and shock, and I decided to go about my daily routine to calm down mentally so I can think about all this logically. As I don't have a job or any support system, there's quite a lot to figure out if I end up getting divorced. And if I'm going to deal with all those problems, then I need to have a calm and collected mind. While going about my routine, I went to take out the trash and found a discarded letter there. For some reason, I got curious and decided to check it out. Thank God I did, because that mail gave me a way to seek revenge on my husband. It was a letter from the IRS. I went through the letter and found out that it was addressed to my husband, as they had found funds in his account that were unaccounted for, and they needed him to present his tax invoices and documents supporting his income in front of a judge. If he failed to do so, then they'll be allowed to pursue legal action against him for tax fraud. I was shocked to see the letter. Moreover, the fact that it was sealed is a sign that my husband hasn't seen it yet and accidentally threw it in the trash with the spam pamphlets and added mail. I decided to take my time and go through my husband's stuff to find out exactly what was going on. As I know that he's a really organized person, there won't be any way that he doesn't keep track of each and every business deal he has ever made, whether it's for $20 or $2 million. I was also lucky that he was away for a while because I can go through his home office without getting caught, as I'm not exactly allowed in there. Once I went through all the files on his computer and his business diaries, I was finally able to find a small record book. I could not believe what I saw in there. About a few years ago, my husband has set up a fake business that deals in organizing whale watching trips. Apparently, that's the front that he's been presenting for all his backhand deals, and not gonna lie, that did seem pretty ingenious. A business where he can control the people he allowed to go whale watching and then make a deal with them in the middle of the ocean with no witnesses. That is genius. But since his karma was finally catching up with him, I decided to put everything back at its place and just bide my time. I threw out the letter from the IRS and I hid any more papers or emails he would have received. By the time he came back from his vacation with his young girlfriend, it was too late, and he was pretty deep in trouble and couldn't do anything about it as a full-fledged investigation was opened on him. I even anonymously mailed his business diary to the IRS office, hoping that someone can get it to the right people and it'll be easier for them to pin him down. Since my husband had already asked me for a divorce, I wanted nothing more but to see him get ruined. I know I'm the a-hole for doing this because this will get him jailed, but I was just so hurt. I put up with his BS for a decade only to be handed some divorce papers without a single apology. When the case against my husband finally went to trial and the overwhelming evidence against him proved him guilty, he was served with a fine of $175,000 and 54 months in prison. At that point, I had already divorced my husband and was living separately from him. After his girlfriend found out about his criminal charges, she ended up breaking up with him and he was left with nothing in the end. I did feel a little sorry for this man whom I loved at one point, but no amount of pity or feeling sorry would make up for how he destroyed my life or how he was responsible for the things he brought upon himself. Now, AITA here for going to such extremes? Is it really not okay to seek revenge from a man to whom I devoted my life and who in the end did nothing but break me and leave me? Do you really think he's not the a-hole here for having extramarital affairs and committing tax frauds? It's been 4 months since everything happened after my divorce. I have slowly started to get back some stability in my life and I'm trying to be completely independent. Since my family helped me initially to settle at a rental place after I got divorced, I decided to pay them back with the money I received in our settlement. After that, I looked for a job as a secretary in the financial sector since I graduated from business studies, and it's the best that I could have hoped for after not working for years. I was able to make ends meet somehow in the last couple of months, but it was not enough. So when my friend called me with a job offer at her own startup, I couldn't help but accept since the deal was a good one and I'd get to work in a friendly environment. I'll be leaving for Austin soon, and that's why I wanted to visit my husband one last time. So I went to see him. I visited him last week, and once I saw how bad he looked, I couldn't help but take some satisfaction at his condition. When he saw me, he really got happy, but I was there to completely break him. When he told me he didn't expect me to ever visit him and that he had missed me, I proceeded to tell him how his current situation is partly because of me and I don't regret one bit what I did. He was so surprised to hear me take responsibility that he went crazy and started shouting at me. Since violence wasn't allowed, his reaction ended up cutting our meeting short, but still I was able to finally let go of him completely. Once I leave this city, hopefully I'll be able to get a completely new life and find a better man next time. I'm just glad that my family and friends have been the most supportive of all, and they don't hate me for being a pathetic fool who stuck by the side of a man like my ex-husband for 10 years. It's been 2 years since my last update, and I just wanted to drop a quick last one for the people who supported me and messaged me about my situation. Life has been a lot happier since I got divorced. I was finally able to have a good career, and I am hoping to have a strong enough resume soon enough to apply for my dream job, even though I'm not so young anymore. I haven't visited my ex-husband since I moved to a different state and haven't even thought of contacting him. He is completely out of my life, and I plan to keep it that way. As for my friends and family, I've come to realize that some relationships are so much stronger that they can survive years of neglect, and since I've learned this lesson, I've made sure to focus on keeping the good ones around. I've also started dating again, but haven't yet found anyone interesting enough or not creepy enough to go on a third or fourth date with. Life, all in all, has been good lately, and I hope it stays that way. ETA, what your husband did to you was a really crappy thing, and you absolutely didn't deserve it. And I don't support people who evade their taxes while half our country just struggles to survive. But I also don't think what you did was right. Revenge to a limit is okay, but everything about this situation was extreme. And in my opinion, you guys could have handled it much more maturely. NTA, No, you're not the a-hole here, and that shady soap of a man you called your husband absolutely deserved everything he got. I hate nothing more in this world than a man who cheats on women, treats them like trash, leaves them to die, and also cheats on his country. He shouldn't even be called a man at all. I'm sorry you had to suffer through him, and I hope in future you find out what real men are. I'm 28, MTF, trans. My parents are in their 60s and early 70s. I don't know where to start with this at all, so here goes. I've known I was trans since 14, and I also knew I'd better hide it, so I did. I did what was expected of me, and I saved money where I could, although till 18, it would end up getting taken away. Going into university, I finally had a little more freedom to be me. I got my BA in computer programming. My dad got diagnosed with cancer at around the time of graduation, and I took a job close to home to help out. I ended up inevitably moving in with them and eventually was paying them $1,200 for rent and utilities. Yeah, I was a doormat until about 3 weeks ago when it came to them. My one weakness that helped me to keep sanity was makeup. I would practice putting it on after I went to my room for the night. It helped me to feel like the real me. Anyways, so 3 weeks ago while I was at work, Mom was apparently deep cleaning and found my stash of feminine items. She and Dad had started yelling when I came home. The truth about me being trans came out. Then my dad told me, if you aren't my son, you aren't my family. If you aren't my family, get out. So I did. I packed my bags after telling them I would call the cops if they didn't let me get my things, and left. I've now moved across the country after getting a job here and am settling into a small apartment. Since that day, my sisters have been blowing up my phone, telling me to grow a pair and be a man like God intended me to be. That is because I'm not contributing. They might lose their house and generally call me an a-hole. Am I the a-hole for leaving my parents unable to cope financially? NTA, he told you to get out and you did. If your sisters are so worried about them losing their house, then they can contribute. It's not only up to you to support them. You are NTA. They basically told you to leave and that they didn't accept you. They obviously didn't think of the consequences of that choice, and now they have to live with it. Even if they didn't kick you out, if you would have moved out, it still wouldn't be your problem what happens to them. Who are the parents here? They are taught to learn to be adults and handle their business. Nothing to do with you. NTA, your dad told you to leave, you left. End of story. The basic human decency thing is to simply embrace you for being you. So you're trans. So what? You're still their child and a fellow human. If anything, they should be apologizing for not making you feel like you could be honest about who you are. But if they weren't capable of refraining from a-hole behavior on human decency grounds, they could at least muster some civility on the basis that you're keeping their finances solvent. Don't bite the hand that feeds. But no, not only could they not accept a very fundamental part of your identity, but they had to shame you for it, deny your identity, and demand that you leave. So you left. If they didn't want to lose you and your support, they had ample opportunity to not do so. Instead, they messed around and found out what happens when you treat someone who is supporting you as a subhuman. If they lose their house, that's on their heads. I have plantar fasciitis and am in the middle of a rotten flare up. One of the most important aspects of handling it is making sure to keep your arches supported at all times. This means that I basically haven't walked around barefoot for more than a minute here or there for the past 5 years. I have a pair of OOFOS for inside only. They've never been beyond the front door to my house. Then I have extra supportive other shoes as well. Then I have a pair of travel shoes that I take with me if I'm ever visiting someone's home. Well, I guess that was a huge issue for my mother-in-law because we visited their home for the first time since it started. I thought everything was going to go fine until I switched into my house shoes and she got on my case about no shoes in the house. I explained like I did above and she just said it's the house rule and always has been. I looked to my husband for support or guidance, and he told his mom that it wasn't a big deal. The shoes have never been outside, etc. Mom wouldn't budge. I really wasn't looking to make my flare up worse, especially when we had plans to go hiking with them. So I said that if I can't wear them, I'm going to have to probably stay elsewhere or join them outside. Mother in law said I was being melodramatic and then said, I've had PF before and I didn't need to wear shoes all the time. I told her that was great, but that it had nothing to do with me. Well, she did eventually cave, and she was pretty passive aggressive about it all. She kept staring at my feet, staring at the carpet after I'd walked on it, etc. Then, when I took out my tennis ball to do my foot exercises while we were just sitting around watching a movie together, she kept huffing and rolling her eyes. So, in general, I wouldn't think I was the a hole, but my father in law took me aside on day 4 and asked me if I could just try to meet her halfway and maybe just wear them when I was walking around in the guest room. He said that they had extended enough hospitality and I could at least try not to be a poor guest. I just said no and told him to talk to my husband about it. He said there was no need for that and just sighed, and that was that. I'm kind of worried I was a nightmare guest. AITA? NTA, as someone who absolutely hates shoes inside my house. House shoes that never go outside and are worn for medical reasons are a perfectly acceptable alternative. It's respectful and kind to make sure you have them. What really gets me is the side eye when you are doing your foot exercises. They are petty and completely unreasonable. I was very ready to see mother in law's side here because I am a clean freak and I hate shoes inside. But I read the whole thing and you're basically wearing what amounts to house slippers. Mother in law is being melodramatic. I can't imagine treating a guest like that in my house. NTA.